Hello everyone, I'm Archdeacon Bill Gray and I'm the priest of the Anglican parish of Bobcaygeon, Dunsford and Burnt River in Ontario. I'm speaking to you from home where, like you, I'm practicing self-isolation in order to do my part to help to keep others safe. This is Palm Sunday weekend. It is the beginning of our Holy Week observances, and when we commemorate Good Friday, the crucifixion of Jesus, and as we anticipate Easter Sunday, the celebration of Christ's resurrection. Perhaps no one feels like celebrating at this time. And it's difficult on a weekend when we recollect that 2,000 years ago, the crowds gathered in Jerusalem and welcomed the arrival of Jesus in triumph and also in great humility, riding upon a lowly beast of burden, a donkey. They took what was available, their coats, their clothes, blankets, and laid them in the road before him. They grabbed from the local trees branches of palm and waved them in the air as well as placed them on the road. And they used their voices, something readily accessible to them, to shout acclamations of joy, "Hosanna to the Son of David, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." Of course, in the midst of this global pandemic of the COVID-19 virus, and especially the terrible ways in which it has afflicted us locally in Bobcaygeon, our celebrations this year are muted and subdued. We are not gathering in our usual groups and community get-togethers. Families will not be getting together in the same way this Easter season for common celebrations and meals. Churches will not be gathering in their worship spaces. And on this Palm Sunday of all occasions, we have branches of palm not available to us. Groups that usually gathered in the church at this time of year to take fronds of branches of palm and make them into palm crosses for our individual use will not do so. Decorators that often gathered in worship spaces to display in wonderful arrangements branches of palm in order to adorn our sanctuaries will not do so. Indeed, we will have to celebrate Palm Sunday in a different way. Those of long ago who gathered in crowds in order to grab branches of palm to wave in celebration of the arrival of Jesus, they did so by simply procuring that which was readily available and local. Palm trees to them were indigenous to their community. They were not exotic or from a faraway place. They certainly didn't have the attachment of holiness that we place on them today. They simply took what they knew and was familiar and available, and they waved it high in the air to shout, high in the air to shout their hosannas. I wonder if on this Palm Sunday, when so much that is familiar and traditional is unavailable to us, if we could do something similar. Perhaps we can go out into our yards and simply cut branches of coniferous evergreens to use in our own personal devotions. Perhaps the more adventurous might even take in a barren branch of some deciduous leafless tree, but in commemoration that this is Passion Week and Holy Week, they might do so in the idea of the promise of the life that is yet to come, that is yet to be, and the leaves that they hope will show themselves with the arrival of spring, in the hopes of what we too might enjoy, the new life after this pandemic has passed. There are other ways, if you don't have access to trees in your properties, perhaps a leaf or a sprig from a house plant. We might even get creative and find something leafy in the fridge that was intended for a salad. It doesn't have to be something growing or from a branch of a tree. We may have a very favorite or familiar portrait or picture that features a landscape that has personal meaning and significance. And our reflections upon that image can be for us our own branches of palm to help us to celebrate Palm Sunday. Our focus this year in our community, particularly in Bobcaygeon, is on the Pinecrest Nursing Home. We think at this time of those frontline workers, the frontline responders. We think of caregivers and volunteers, of staff. We also think of those who are sick or died, and particularly their families and friends as well in their bereavement and mourning, which is made acutely compounded by the fact that many were unable to be available and with their loved ones as they suffered through this affliction. Many of us, as I said, may not feel like celebrating much at this Easter at this time. And yet there are ways to continue to express our own appreciation to those frontline responders that exercise care and frontline attention on our behalf. Many in the community have participated in community drive-bys. Caravans of automobiles have driven past hospitals and medical centers, care facilities, EMS services buildings, fire stations, police stations, and other such public institutions, rolling down their windows and shouting at the top of their lungs some expression of their support and appreciation for what frontline responders are doing for us. Others, even with their personal and immediate families, have found ways to connect in similar ways. People in our own parish have organized caravans to drive by the homes of their loved ones to honor and respect anniversaries and birthdays of the elderly and youth alike. And in this way have found meaningful ways to connect, even in the difficulties that refrain us from having direct contact in this day and age. Others make signs and posters where written words expect our love and connection. They gather outside windows of nursing care facilities and the like in order to show cards and pictures and bouquets of flowers and to wave and to blow kisses and to indicate to those on the inside that those on the outside have not forgotten them. We are finding what I like to determine as local options, local ways of demonstrating our own joy and appreciation of those who enter our lives to offer frontline care. Jerusalem was not unlike our communities and towns and cities that are going through the affliction of COVID-19 virus pandemic today. Jerusalem had its own experience of poverty, hunger, injustice, distancing and isolation and a sense of oppression. There were many that probably did not feel like celebrating when Jesus entered. But they welcomed Jesus as their own frontline responder, as someone who cared and was ready to risk even his security and life in order to demonstrate that God had not forgotten them. They were told that their shouting, their hosannas, their celebrations were inappropriate. The crowds that gathered to welcome Jesus into Jerusalem were instructed to refrain and to shut up and that indeed they were causing risk to themselves and to Jesus himself for fear that the authorities or their enemies or those that didn't like them would retaliate. But Jesus intervened. He said himself, if these crowds were quiet, the rocks and trees themselves would shout out their acclamations. Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Many of us, of course, are finding the need to stay home. And we will commemorate Holy Week observances, that most holy time of our Christian year, and Easter celebrations in isolation and away from family and friends. But we should not feel sorry for ourselves. Rather, we should be encouraged by and find ways to express our own hosannas to those who come and work in the name of the Lord. On our property, we have found a balsam fir that had just the perfect new growth and green on it that expressed to us new life even in this midst and time of death. Perhaps on Palm Sunday, we'll find our own way to go outside, to stand in our yard, to wave this branch high, and in the spirit of thankfulness and appreciation for frontline responders and caregivers, we will shout our own, Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And in that way, we will celebrate a different kind, but perhaps even a more meaningful kind of Palm Sunday.